So I'm just looking at the results of the local elections now on the BBC, and it's been a very interesting result, I think, and a rather worrying one, perhaps, since Reform now have 353 council seats, up 353. Labour have 245, down 249. The Lib Dems have 241, up 36. The Conservatives have 235, down 139, and the Greens have 48, up 25, with Independents getting 20, and that's down 16. So what are we to make all this? I think I was expecting the Green Party to do rather a lot better than they have done. That result seems to be quite disappointing, gaining only 25 seats. But it's a telling fact of local elections. They always suffer from low voter turnout. I didn't vote in this local election. I mean, one of the reasons why I didn't vote in this election is because I'm living in Haslemere at the moment, and the Haslemere ward of, I think it's West or East Surrey, one of those. Is a safe Lib Dem seat, and I didn't really fancy voting for the Green Party since I think it might be kind of a wasted vote here, and I don't particularly have any problems with the Liberal Democrats at the moment as a political party, and I don't really think that my vote would change anything here, and I didn't really see this election as being so important, and I don't think it is so important. I don't really think these reform gains are going to reflect their performance in a general election by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think. I think what this is going to do, and I think this is the silver lining that can be taken from all this, this is going to give Reform Party now an opportunity to prove how incompetent they are in government. In local government. They already elected an 18-year-old, I think it was in Worcester County Council, to be their councillor, and this person was put in charge of budgets of several £1 million and so on, and it turned out to be a complete disaster. And I think we're going to see a lot more stuff like that happening from the Reform Party over the coming years into the run up into the next general election, since I've been looking through Reform's policies this morning on their website, and it's all to do with immigration, repealing human rights legislation, and all this sort of stuff that could be incredibly damaging to the social fabric of the country, and it represents a desire in a small hardline minority of the British people who want, for instance, like, to be tougher on crime, to be tough on immigration, and who support this strongman politics and these far right ideals. And I don't think that everyone who's been suckered into that ideology is a racist, but all the racists vote for reform, do they not? Of course they do. Or they vote now for Restore UK, this other tin pot organisation run by Rupert Lowe, who's decided that the Reform Party isn't reactionary enough, and we need to be even tougher on crime, even tougher on immigration, and that Restore been advocating things like everyone who's on benefits should be made to work, or they get their benefits taken away from them. In spite of the fact that most people on benefits, I think, work anyway, and people on benefits should be made to work at the risk of losing their benefits to clean up the country, and well, that is slave labor. You're trying to get a large group of people to work for benefits money, which is less than minimum wage, and you're doing it coercively, and therefore you're forcing people to work for less than minimum wage. You're getting free work off people. Like, that is slave labor. And when it comes to reform, the only aspect of human rights that they're really interested in their manifesto, the only thing they're interested in defending is the freedom of speech, and not the rest of it. And really, what they have to human rights legislation is this kind of cherry picking attitude, whereby they pick the human rights that suits them the most, and says to hell with the rest of it. It's its rights to defend, I guess only British people and not people around the world, in spite of the fact that there's international legislation, and they desperately want to remove us from the European Convention on Human Rights, and in spite of the fact that we're still protected by the International Declaration of Human Rights, and that is that's, for instance, one of our conditions, that we uphold the International Declaration of Human Rights. That's a condition of things like us being part of the United Nations Security Council and things like this. And I don't know, really. I'm really disappointed. I'm disappointed in people. I'm disappointed actually in myself for not going out and voting and not exercising my own civil rights. And, well, I mean, then again, I'm not really, because I'm happy enough with the Lib Dems winning here. But yeah, if it looked like there was a strong chance of Reform winning in Haslemere, which I very much doubt they ever would win here. But yeah, I would probably vote then, and I would like to vote for the Green Party, since the Green Party's policies most closely align with my own way of thinking. And yeah, I believe that their policies have a sound basis in evidence, make good economic sense, and all the rest of it. And yeah, I don't really want to live in this country where we're ruled by a small-minded, closed-minded, thuggish, and totalitarian seeking minority of the population. And it's very scary in the last election when 4 million people voted for Reform. 4 million people is a hell of a lot of people. And again, like I'm saying, like, not all of them are racists, I'm sure, and they've just been gulled into this common sense way of thinking in politics. And, like, for instance, like common sense, say what you like about common sense, but it often doesn't reflect the best humanity, and it doesn't often reflect the real truth of the matter when it comes to truth established in evidence. For instance, it's common sense to think that the sun goes around the earth, and for a great portion of our history, that's what people believed, because it was common sense, because it looks like the sun does go around the earth. That it took scientific research. It took very, very intelligent people working on this issue over the course of hundreds of years to prove empirically, categorically, that view of reality is incorrect and insubstantial. But moving away from that, yeah, there's very low turnout. All the hardliners come out and vote in these elections, and lots of people have been turned away from voting because they don't have passports or ID, which kind of excludes the poorest people in society from voting. And lots of people don't have passports or a driving license or ID, and would like to vote, but this is the sort of democracy that we live in, if we really are living in a true democracy, and not this kind of tyranny of small, loud minorities, which I think very often goes on. I think we need proportional representation in our voting system, obviously, and any political party, if they want to take power, should have over 50% of the vote. And that should be over 50% of the total electorate, their vote. Or we should have coalitions which represent over 50% of people, and have majority rule, which is what democracy is supposed to be, not minority rule, But I'm disappointed in the outcome of this election, but I'm not overly surprised, I don't think. I think that the next election, the general election, is going to be one of the most viciously contested battles that the UK has ever seen. And it will be one of the most decisive general elections that any of us have ever witnessed. And we could see our country drift into calamity under reform or go to a more progressive, better place under parties like the Green Party, the Lib Dems, and even Labour, I think. Although Labour, if they want to stand a chance of doing well in the next election, have to seriously change policy directions and seriously consider things like drug decriminalisation. And when people see the positive benefits of policy such as that before the next election, then I think they'll be more inclined to vote for Labour. But the way that Labour are doing at the moment in these elections clearly is abysmal. They lost 249 seats. That's pretty crap. That's really bad. The Conservatives, again, down as well, 139, with Reform taking votes from both Labour and Conservative. And that should tell you a lot, really, about people's voting behaviour and their intentions. Reform are enticing people from both formerly left-wing backgrounds and right-wing backgrounds. The right wings, because it's not right-wing enough. The Reform of the New Tories and so on. That's how they're positioning themselves in the market, and people in Labour just disaffected with leftist politics in general and drifting directly to the far right. It's craziness, really. But the Greens not doing well, not doing as well as I'd hoped, because they do have some policies that are going to make people deeply unhappy with them, like having to retake your driving test every 5 years and lowering the speed on motorways to 55 miles an hour, which I do sort of agree with, since I think lowering speeds on motorways will save lives. And taking your driving test every 5 years, I think that will bring down the rate of casualties on the roads also. And it's not such a bad idea necessarily. And if you're a good driver, it shouldn't be so much of a problem to take your test again. But yeah, I'm disappointed, but not surprised. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'll see you soon.